Aww. Hello, boys and girls. Allow me to tell you the magical tale of a little film company that brought fondly remembered cartoons to American television for years, and about the magical film they made that killed the company dead. Hello, this is DragonKeeper. It's been a while since we've done a film commentary, she said at the start of every film commentary she's ever done. But we are here to watch this animated film that I found out about not that long ago, called Pinocchio and the Emperor of the Night. As you could tell from this image of a bumblebee, we're deep in Super Pinocchio town right now. Doesn't this imagery just scream Pinocchio?
What's the ruckus all about?
What do I have to do with Pinocchio? So, I, like a lot of people, I think, though not everyone, I first found out about this film through Phaelus's review of it. Good old Phelan Porteous, who, has a habit of seeking out really obscure animated shit and reviewing it on his channel. This particular movie that... I'd never heard of this movie before I saw his review of it, but it fascinated me right away. Partly because of just what a mess it was, partly because of its fascinating history, which I will get into over the course of this commentary, because it's not really possible to talk at this movie at length in any kind of meaningful way without talking about its history, and partly because it's really fascinatingly dark. Like, look at this imagery. This is just like a carnival being sent up. Those are like tied up tents sneaking across the screen. But you gotta hand it to filmmakers who can take something as simple as setting up a carnival and just through lighting and the line work and everything, make it look horrifying. Evil carnivals in movies are, of course, a dime a dozen, but, you know, this does stand out. Like, the tent snaking across looks very disgusting, like some sort of poisonous creature, and everything setting it up by itself looks very uncanny. I wish this stupid bee guy wasn't here, but regardless. As you've probably guessed from that guy's design, he is a major character, unfortunately. But you know that lamps! Lamps!
Just as you said, your darkness. It's perfect.
Yes, a perfect spot.
Hi, James! Weird that you're in this movie. So yes, that was James Earl Jones' voice you heard coming from that ship. There are a few pretty big celebrities in this movie, but the most immediately recognizable is James Earl Jones. So, as you may recall, a couple years ago, a lot of internet reviewers and just moviegoers in general had Pinocchio on the brain due to all the Pinocchio films being shoved into our eyeballs. The year 2022, for whatever reason, saw a lot of Pinocchio films. We had Disney's live-action remake of their classic film, which everyone hated. We had the stop-motion, straight-to-Netflix film directed by Guillermo del Toro, which everyone loved. And then we had the Pauly Shore Russian animated film that everyone loved for different reasons. And also Pinocchio cameoed in Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which came out this year. And I guess because of all the Pinocchio buzz, Phaelus, I think in 2023, or maybe it was 2023, decided to review this movie from Filmation. So this Pinocchio movie came out in the late 80s, and this was part of a very strange project Filmation had done. Filmation, you may recall, is a company that did a lot of these limited animation animated series on television. So, like, a lot of they use a lot of cheap animation techniques like rotoscoping and cut frames and such, so their animation has a very distinct look. They did the famous He-Man cartoon, including the He-Man, like the Christmas special and all that stuff. They did the Ghostbusters series, they did the Star Trek animated series, they did a lot of stuff for DC, like Aquaman and Batman, and like all their stuff has that kind of stiff, sort of uncanny look. When they decided to go into films, one thing they wanted to do, and this is why this film was one of the last they ever made, was they wanted to make films that were unofficial copyright-dodging sequels to classic movies. So, this film is actually kind of intended to believably be a sequel to the Disney Pinocchio film. So, you might have said, well, that can't be, because Pinocchio and Geppetto and the Blue Fairy all look way different from how they did in the Disney film. Who would confuse this for a sequel? Well, you have to understand, some people are kind of clueless when it comes to film, and when they see Pinocchio, they assume, oh, it must be like that film I saw as a kid, okay, and they don't think about it any more closely than that.
He learns everything so fast.
He almost looks alive.
And the marketing for this film didn't help, like using a lot of like, the adventure continues, you know, like to kind of subtly imply that this is a sequel to the Disney film, but it's not. They had no legal right to make a sequel to the Disney film. And Disney got kind of mad that they were using their film as... Oh, God! Oh! That was horrifying.
Day by day.
God, I was thrown off by that horrifying facial expression.
You have heart and
Oh yes, this is a musical also.
them both will
So the Blue Fairy here, who is called the Good Fairy, or the Pinocchio calls her his fairy godmother for copyright dodging reasons, is voiced by Ricky Lee Jones, who is a Grammy-winning musician who this is her only voice acting role. And despite the fact that she's not... God, stop showing that face! It's horrible! Her voice does kind of have an ethereal quality in this movie that I kind of like. Yeah, stop showing that! No! Bad! So, anyway, what I was saying about Disney is Disney actually sued this film for copyright infringement for being an unofficial sequel. And that case did go to court, and Filmation ended up winning because Pinocchio is a public domain work. So like anybody can make a Pinocchio film, and the court determined that this film was legally distinct enough that Disney didn't have a case. However, Filmation spent so much on the legal fees for this movie, plus this film didn't make back its budget in the box office, that it ended up driving Filmation to bankruptcy. So, did they actually win? It seems like Disney more won that one, since they probably got what they wanted and driving a competitor out of business. What's strange about this is that Filmation wanted to make a whole bunch of not-quite sequel films. One they came out after this was a Snow White sequel that ended up being called Happily Ever After. And they also wanted to make sequels for a bunch of other Disney films, some live-action films. It was a very weird project that you basically making films that are continuation of stories that you didn't make, one, and two, that follow their own continuity that is unique to any particular version. Like, Geppetto's got a bird in this one. If you're trying to pretend this is connected to the Disney version, why did you give him a bird? You didn't have a bird in the Disney one. Is there any version where he had a bird? Plus, this version has it that the Blue Fairy brought Pinocchio to life, which was not the case in the original story. The fairy had nothing to do with Pinocchio coming to life.
always remember freedom of choice. It's your greatest power.
Will you please disappear? Either say something useful or get gone.
I didn't even get to say goodbye.
There now, son. I'm sure she knows.
She knows that she left, Pinocchio.
Oh my, the time. I forgot all about the mayor's box.
The mayor?
That's right.
Don't say the mayor's box. That's filthy.
Pieces. I promised to deliver it this morning.
On the day of your son's birthday?
As soon as I get back, we can finish your party.
I know where the mayor lives. Could I?
No, don't trust him to do this.
Son, this is our most valuable order ever.
You know, it probably since this is your son's birthday, his first birthday he's ever had, and if you have to deliver this thing tomorrow, maybe go together. That way the entire plot of this movie can be avoided. But no, I'm gonna trust this dumbass kid to deliver it for me.
Right home.
I promise. My friend can keep me company.
And Pinocchio.
My friend, not Jiminy, the not cricket. So a lot of the characters that are in the original story and in the Disney version are conspicuously absent from this movie. There is no cricket, there is no fox and cat. There is no coachman, and part of the reason for that is, again, they're trying to dodge copyright, which they ended up not being able to avoid a lawsuit anyway, but they wanted to pretend that this is a sequel, so if they brought in more characters that had different designs and names, because, like, Disney... Oh god, look at this stupid skipping. Disney, renamed the characters. Like, they named the Cricket Jiminy Cricket. That wasn't his name in the original story. And they named the Fox and Cat Honest John and Gideon. That wasn't their names originally. So, if they wanted to bring in their own characters, they couldn't use those names, which would mess up their whole, like, plausible deniability they're trying to do about this being a sequel. So instead, they bring in a lot of substitute characters. Like, the disturbing guy with the big lips we saw earlier, he's basically a substitute for Machiavelli, who was renamed Stromboli in the Disney version. Yes, he went from Fire Eater to Pastry. And then this little wood bug here is a very obvious stand-in for Jiminy Cricket. And they also have their own replacements for Honest John and Gideon. It's all very eye-rolling.
Same as you. I'm your
You know, there's enough unique ideas in this movie that, like, you haven't seen any of them yet, except for that really fun carnival setting up scene, which was only like a minute. But you'll see there are a lot of unique and fun ideas in this. And if they had, like, made their own Pinocchio movie with original characters, original story, instead of pretending that this is a sequel to something, they probably would have fared a lot better. I mean, that's what Guillermo del Toro did. Worked for him.
I guess you're right.
But no, we have to, like, try to piggyback off the success of another company and hope that they aren't lawsuit happy enough to...
We'll just take a...
So you might have missed it since I was talking over it, but he ends up naming the wooden bug that the fairy brought to life, because bringing wood to life is just what this fairy does, I guess. G. Willikers. G and me Cricket. G. Willikers. Get it? They're both exclamations.
happy little mouse.
So this character here is our Honest John ripoff. His name is Scallywag. He's a raccoon, not a fox, which is weird because doesn't the story take place in Italy? There aren't raccoons in Italy. And Gideon has been replaced with a monkey named Igor. Now, unlike Gideon, Igor talks, which I would consider to be a flaw. I'd be harsher on him if he wasn't voiced by Frank Welker, who is a voice actor we all know. He's been on this channel tons of times. He's the voice of Megatron, both in Transformers G1 and Transformers Prime. Also, he's been in basically every animated thing ever because he's Frank Welker, and he's like the most prolific voice actor ever. It's weird that he's voicing a Fez-wearing monkey here when he would voice another Fez-wearing monkey just a few years later in Disney's Aladdin.
And which will it be?
Voice acting is a weird profession, what can I say?
The middle one.
Scallywag here, by the way, is, voiced by Ed Asner, who is a big star for a long time before this movie came out. But, people my age will know him best as the voice of Carl Fredricksen from Up. Take a bath, hippie!
What's under the
So one thing I noticed about Scallywag in particular is that his animation is really good. Like, the animation in this movie is pretty inconsistent in quality. Sometimes it looks pretty shoddy or just downright bad or cheap, like what you'd expect from Filmation. But other times it looks really crispy, fresh, and smooth with like a lot of motion and expressions. And for some reason, a lot of the most movement and expression you'll see in this movie is around Scallywag. He's just a supporting comedic relief character. I guess the animators really liked him because, like, they go all out when drawing him. It kind of reminds me of, to bring up Transformers Prime again, if you remember Miko from that show, she was always, like, really expressive, and apparently, I remember listening to the audio commentary in the DVDs for Transformers Prime with the creators mentioning how, like, the animation was outsourced to an animation company called Polygon, and whenever they would, like, send back storyboards or, like, scripts to Polygon, they get the animation back, and Miko was always, like, moving more and more expressive than what was in the storyboards. They would, like, say, like, Miko, like, walks into the room, and then they would send back animation of, like, Miko doing front flips into the room. Like, For whatever reason, the animators just really liked Miko, and they like put in a lot of extra effort that the storyboard artists and writers did not ask them to do when animating her. And I kind of suspect that something similar happened with Scallywag. So maybe I should move. Nope, too dumb.
Perfect landing. Sylvester J. Scalawag at your service.
You can tell from the voice, it does sound like Carl.
I mean, Pinocchio.
A splendid name. Melodious, rolls off the tongue. He's nice name.
Wasn't there a scene in the Disney version where Honest John gets Pinocchio's name wrong? I remember, was it this review or another review that made me curious to check out the Disney version of Pinocchio again? Because I hadn't seen it for years and years since I was a little kid, so I hadn't remembered it very well. I sought it out and watched it again. No, I think it was actually the Pauly Shore movie or like something that made me seek out Disney's version. And then right after I watched that, I watched this, or not this, but Phaelus' review of this, and I was just smacking my head against the table all throughout the review. Because, like, a big part of the Disney version is Pinocchio is gullible, and he keeps getting tricked by adults with ill intent into doing bad things, like, you know, not going to school and running away from home and going to the carnival and or Pleasure Island. And this is, like, remember, they're pretending this is a sequel. And Pinocchio falling for all the same tricks for very similar characters was incredibly frustrating to me. It's like, you learned this already! It's especially eye-rolling because it's been established at the beginning of this movie that Pinocchio has been human for a year. So presumably, he's been functioning as a human boy. He's gone to school, he's learned something about responsibility.
It is?
He's like, you know, he should have learned the lessons in the original story, and he hasn't.
The Pharaoh's ruby.
And,
You remember?
sorry, I forgot what I was saying. Oh, yeah. Pinocchio being, you know, dumb and falling for stuff in the original Disney version made sense because he was basically a newborn. He had just been created by the fairy. He didn't know how anything worked. It wasn't so much stupidity as it was naivete. And by the end of the movie, he does learn and mature. And, in this, though, there's no excuse. Like, he should know better. There's no excuse for him not to know better. It's not naivete anymore, it's just stupidity.
It's a deal.
Did you like that? They covered up my mouth so they didn't have to animate me saying that. Also, in a similar way, it makes no sense that G. Willikers is his conscience. Because in the, wait, he went to deliver it in the morning and didn't get back until nightfall? Did he get distracted by like 10 other things on the way there?
Still can't.
Maybe it's not stupidity, maybe he just has ADD.
You should have known it was too good to be true.
I wonder if.
Especially since you were given one thing to do and you messed it up. Again, this is partly on Geppetto, though, for sending this kid off to do an errand on his birthday.
Being a real boy.
You're not very good at
It's
existing.
easier being a puppet.
Now,
Anyway, what I was saying about G. Willikers is that in the original version, or Disney version, which this film considers the original version, it made sense for Jiminy Cricket to be his conscience because he was already alive before the fairy came along. He was an adult. He'd been around the block.
I'm proud of you.
The beginning of the Disney version actually shows that he'd been homeless for a while. Like, his clothes were all in tatters and stuff. So, like, he was street smart, too, and he knew when people couldn't be trusted. So he was guiding Pinocchio based on his own experience as an adult that Pinocchio didn't have. In this, G. Willikers is the newborn. He was just created earlier today, and yet he's wiser and more street smart than Pinocchio? That makes no sense! If you could create wooden, like, if you can bring wood to life already knowing all these lessons, why didn't you do that with Pinocchio? Stupid!
It's the final night of the carnival.
Oh good, we're back to the creepy carnival. Okay. So, this movie kind of has a meandering plot. And it kind of feels a lot of times that the movie doesn't have focus. The reason that Pinocchio is heading to this carnival is just because he decided to run away after losing the music box. But, like, very quickly, he will have an actual goal of get the music box back. That's not his goal now. You think that would be his goal right away, but instead they wait for him to do that, and so they can have this scene. Now, that said, this scene coming up, where Pinocchio meets our big-lipped puppeteer man, is one of the best scenes in the movie. And it's also, not by coincidence, one of the scariest scenes in the movie. In fact, it's actually is the scariest scene in the movie, and is a good contender for the scariest scene in any animated movie ever. I am so not kidding! So, a lot of these obscure animated films that I've seen other internet reviewers cover, like, A Troll in Central Park, and We're Back, A Dinosaur Story, and even the last movie Filmation ever made, Happily Ever After, I found out about because when I was a kid, my grandparents owned a collection of VHSs. I don't know how they had them, but they had them like in these plastic crates under their bed in my mother's old bedroom. And like basically you would go into that room and like pull the crate out from under the bed, and there'd be tons of VHSs there. And they'd had, like Disney classic stuff, like, Disney animated canon films, but they would also have really obscure films. But they did not have this one. And I am so thankful they did not have this film, because there is no way I would have been able to handle it. It might be surprising to people who know me now as an adult, knowing that I love horror and I write horror, and I'm all into the scary, creepy shit. But as a kid, I was kind of a candy ass when it came to scary imagery in films. This film would have haunted me. You might be thinking, oh, there's nothing that scary in this film so far, DragonKeeper. You're just being like a pussy. No. You don't understand.
Your fairy godmother, eh?
Just watch.
Come here.
No. If any man ever gestures... If you have kids, you should tell them that if any kid, adult, ever gestures to them with that finger like, come here. Like, no. Do not go with that man. Puppetino's character design is atrocious. Like, this is a pretty obscure film that not a ton of people know about, but there are some people posted about it on Tumblr, and one person made a post about Puppetino where they said, he looks atrocious. He's like a caricature of an ethnicity that doesn't exist.
Being a star.
I also looked up this movie on DeviantArt just out of the website that's a sad shell of what it used to be, just out of curiosity, and one thing that came up was a meme of Puppetino that was a screen cap of this movie that said, big-lipped puppeteer moment. Like, I love the internet sometimes.
Why don't you show?
Yes, come deeper into my tent, little boy, and nothing nefarious will happen here. Say, wasn't she smiling earlier? Oh, I just now noticed that my hand is wooden because I'm an idiot. I'm actually not sure what's turning him to a puppet. Is just standing near Puppetino enough? Okay, here we go, folks. You ready? Just listen to that music. Demonic laughter, the dancing out of control. So what I think makes this scene so disturbing is just the helplessness. They really do a good job in conveying just a scary situation that's spiraling out of control. And the way, like, it pans from all these lifeless puppets as Pinocchio is being turned into one. Just the idea that there's, like, no way out of this. I love that shot in particular. It's so ridiculously sinister. And looks at this shot when it cuts to the shadow, like, that is horror movie shit. Okay, I'll fess up. I haven't actually seen Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio movie yet. I keep telling myself I need to watch it, but I haven't yet. I find it hard to believe he would be able to come up with imagery scarier than that. Maybe as scary as that. But scarier? I don't know. So, Allow me to do my impression of all the kids who were unfortunate enough to see this movie when they were young.
Believes it.
Mommy! I don't like this movie! Mom's just sitting there like, I feel really uncomfortable and I'm not even sure why. So yeah, that freaking happened. So, like, there's an obvious kind of connotation, both in this film and the original, with, like, you know, unsavory adults trying to lure kids away to do terrible things to them. But the imagery seems, or the symbolism, or whatever you want to call it, seems even more on the nose with that scene than it does in any point in the Disney film. Like, especially with the things that Puppetino, yes, that is actually the character's name, was promising him, like, you look like a very talented young man. And like the way he made the girl puppet like kiss him on the cheek like to try to lure him in, like, oh gross. Oh no.
You eight-legged scoundrel, unhand me at once, you hear?
Leave him alone, you bullies!
Oh god, bee guy.
He doesn't come off.
You know, you should probably just let the spiders kill him. That way we wouldn't have to see him for the rest of the movie, ideally. So, a lot of bad animated films have really obnoxious characters, and this film is no exception.
Bad move for a mere worm.
Some people are really bothered by G. Willikers, but honestly, I don't mind him so much. But this bee! His name is Lieutenant Grumblebee, and I hate him. I hate him. And the main reason I hate him is he's a completely one-note character. Like, oh, he's an RAF pilot. And, like, everything that he says is just a stereotype relating to RAF pilots. Like, he's just this blustering, stiff upper lip. Like, oh, go chap, I say, once more into the breach. That's all he is. There's nothing else to him. But apparently Filmation disagreed because, and this is the other thing that's interesting about this film's history, this film was meant to be a vehicle for a television series called Bugsburg, starring G. Willikers and Grumblebee. None of the other characters from Pinocchio were going to be in it, as far as I could tell. It was going to be a cartoon about bugs, starring these two. I don't know why they thought this pairing had enough, like, chemistry that would work, or that Grumblebee was a substantial enough character to be the secondary protagonist in an animated series, but they did. There are, like, nice animation touches that I keep noticing, like when he, like, flies him across the fence and, like, G. Willikers is, like, walking across it. Like, you know, that's a level of detail they didn't have to add, but they did. It's a little bit sad seeing this film, because even though I do think it was kind of sleazy to, like, make a fake sequel, and, like, use the success of a previous movie to try and market their own, this film does prove that Filmation is capable of making some nice animation, and, you know, if they hadn't been mislaid by this stupid fake sequels project, they might have made some really nice stuff.
I don't know the meaning of the word. I'll take you to the woods near the carnival. You can grow from there.
Another reason I hate Grumblebee? He's a dick. And he's a coward. And I just, this movie would be so much better without him and without stupid Bugsburg. So yeah, not only did Puppetino turn him back to a puppet, he turned him back into an inanimate puppet. Like, he can't move or talk or anything. Not sure why he felt the need to tie him up with Twinkle. That seems just very abstractly cruel.
All right. A glowbug's gotta do what
So, you might think that from them cutting to all the other puppets and some of Puppetino's dialogue earlier, they might be implying that all the puppets in this are also former humans. But if that was the intent, they didn't portray it very well. The movie will definitively show later that Twinkle, at least, was probably most likely a human girl that was turned into a puppet, although they're not very clear about that either. But all these other puppets, they just stay puppets for the rest of the movie, and Pinocchio doesn't care about saving any of them the way he does Twinkle. So, like, did the movie just forget? Does the movie not care about these others? Or did the movie imply that they were all transformed humans accidentally and they actually aren't? This movie isn't very clear about a lot of things. Also, thanks, Miss Blue Fairy, for showing up after already Willikers already got them down. Oh well, he's faced untold horrors. What can you do? You know, if she's just going to turn him human again immediately after, it kind of makes you wonder what the point of that scary scene was if it didn't have any lasting applications.
Now, tell me, Pinocchio, why aren't you home in bed?
The only thing that it, like,
After dinner.
that scene only achieved two things. One, Pinocchio saw Twinkle.
Person really has to keep up with his
Which,
chores if he wants to
even then, that isn't that significant. And two, he saw Puppetino for the first time, which also isn't that significant in the long run.
band of,
This movie's plot,
pirates.
I say this a lot about the things I watch on this channel, and it seems true here too. This movie seems like, a rough draft. Like, it feels like, okay, we need a couple more passes in this, we got some notes, make a clear little character arc, and then maybe we could have a movie where we could start, like, storyboarding stuff. But no, they just, like, it feels like the first draft they did is like, okay, get a bunch of the stuff that was in the Disney version. He's tricked by charlatan furries, and his nose grows, and he's tricked to go to, like, a Pleasure Island type place where he's encouraged to have fun, and fairy, and blah, blah, blah. Okay. It's like, wait, but this story doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Doesn't matter! As long as it looks like the Disney version, it's fine! But it wasn't fine, was it, Filmation?
Remember, the gift of life is yours to take care of. Next time I might not be there.
Why? Why wouldn't you be there? It made... Okay, I know... Like, if you've seen the Disney version, you'll know that the Blue Fairy also peaced out halfway through the film and said she wouldn't help Pinocchio anymore. But the reason for that is that she wanted Pinocchio to mature and, like, you know, learn... Oh, God.
I'm not going.
Four-fingered hands do not look right when they're drawn that realistically.
I'm gonna be
Like, you can draw cartoon characters with four-fingered hands if you have, like, a really simple art style, like the one in Fairly Odd Parents or SpongeBob. But when you have, like, more realistically detailed hands, it looks bad with four fingers.
Bye, Twinkle.
Look at him stroking its hand, like, stop! You know I like girls, right? I don't... Yeah, if Twinkle was alive before, and they will show pretty clearly that she was, why, oh why, did the fairy not bring her to life too? And Pinocchio just ditched her there instead of taking her away from the madman holding her captive.
Maybe you're right.
I knew you'd come to your senses.
When I say that the script doesn't make sense, I'm not talking about like, oh, the fairy tale logic doesn't make sense that wouldn't be able to talk. Like, that's not what I mean by not making sense. I mean, like,
Go home and tell Father
the logical motivations for why things happen don't make sense.
Did you get yourself in trouble?
Why didn't the Blue Fairy turn Twinkle back to human? Why didn't she give him more detail about the Emperor of the Night, who is, Puppetino is the Emperor of the Night's servant? Especially since it'll be established later that Emperor of the Night is the Blue Fairy's, like, arch enemy. She has no reason not to warn him about him. This is more than just maturing or learning lessons at stake here, Blue Fairy.
Pinocchio!
Why doesn't the Blue Fairy do more to stop this madman instead of leaving it up to a little boy?
Forget about the box. Today is a new day and... Pinocchio? He's gone.
I'm free! I'm finally free! I'm going to adopt a kitten and forget all about him.
Oh, poor sweet Pinocchio. I love
He's
that boy.
dumb as a bag of hammers, which is what I used to make him.
I'm going to find him.
I like how the bird has even less point than the kitten and the goldfish in the Disney version. At least the kitten and the goldfish had personalities. The bird is just a cute animal to flutter around Geppetto's head sometimes.
Take wrong shell. But you say he win
and give to him.
Papatino is a very big man.
It's true.
And a very
With very big lips.
But
I know. There's an old saying in our line of work. Better to run away and live to cheat another day.
it's very poetic.
I hate to be a coward, Lord Megatron, but sometimes cowards survive.
So it is.
With his totally natural walk cycle.
Say it.
Oh, 50 gold pieces to anybody who bring Pinocchio back to Carnival.
The carnival
So we don't like
downriver
this movie. A big problem with this movie is that it doesn't show scenes that it should. It wastes time focusing on extraneous shit, and a lot of scenes we'd like to see get left out. It doesn't show Papatino seeing that Pinocchio has flown the coop, nor does it show the Emperor of the Night, like,
Argue with your boss.
getting mad at Papatino, nor does it, for losing him, nor does it show Papatino making this deal with Scallywag and Igor. We just hear about it from them secondhand afterward. And the reason we don't see a lot of those scenes is probably because they want to push the Bugsburg series. There's like a long-ass sequence, I think like 10 minutes of this film, that they spend in Bugsburg doing completely plot-irrelevant things because this movie kind of functions as a pilot for characters that aren't even the main characters in this film. It's probably poor decision-making by Filmation that contributed to their downfall.
by a ruffian by the name of Papatino. I think he may be with the carnival. Then you know the Scout. So you see, we are quite helpless. Unless...
What? What? Tell me.
Well,
Even though Scallywag here is an obvious Honest John knockoff, I do find myself liking him.
Yeah, that's what.
Probably because he's one of the few characters in this with a character arc. Probably because of the higher than average quality animation that I've already pointed out. Probably because he's voiced by Ed Asner, giving a very likable vocal performance. Though that alone isn't enough to save the character, since Ed Asner also voices an animal, like, comic relief character in Filmation's next and final film, Happily Ever After, and that character is way more annoying and way less likable than Scallywag. So it's like a combination of things. And I must admit, the idea of an Honest John type figure befriending Pinocchio and actually, like, siding with him against the villain is a nice one. Like, Gideon in the original film was so charming and so fun. Not to mention, he's the Disney character that sings the first ever Disney villain song. The idea of him befriending Pinocchio is, like, a really nice one. Like, I would like to see that, especially since Gideon and Honest John seem terrified of the coachman in the Disney film, so them uniting with Pinocchio against him is something that would be kind of fun to see. But, we don't get that in this film, because Honest John isn't in this film. Instead, we get his knockoff.
In the flower, Grumblebee?
It was probably a coincidence, but, like, right before Phalis' review of this movie was published on YouTube was when the discourse about Pal World had reached its height. And, I guess it was just...
I say you had one bit too many.
It was just striking to me at the time that we went right from one ripoff to another. I've heard of some people saying, like, oh, Pal World isn't a knockoff of Pokemon, it's totally different. Like, no, it's not. It's not. I have eyes! I can see that they ripped off Pokemon's designs!
I say, Willikers,
Beer sports. Give me a leg up, would you?
See what I say about them wasting time in extraneous scenes? Like, instead of showing anything relevant with the main villain, who we have still not seen on camera, with Papatino or Pinocchio, or even establishing a character for Twinkle, who is more of an afterthought in this movie than anything plot important. We're instead showing with Thing 1 and Thing 2 here. And even though I have praised some of the moments of animation in this film, and there is a lot to praise, there's also a lot to, not praise. I've noticed a few times that they've reused shots. Like, I'm pretty sure the shot where, like, Grumblebee is flying G. Willikers over the flowers with the used animation. You might have also noticed during Twinkle's song number earlier in the film, they reused animation for some of the shots in that. So they are cutting corners. Phalis in his review cites the words of one reviewer, whose review was also included on the Wikipedia page for this movie. In fact, let me see if I can find it, since I've got Wikipedia open in front of me.
Please, we must keep our heads.
Okay, Janet Maslin of New York Times called it Saturday morning animation at best, and also compared it unfavorably with Disney's version.
Where was I?
However, a different animator, Leonard Maltin, who you may have heard of, he was a pretty famous film reviewer, declared that some striking animation is wasted on this uninspired sequel, in quotes, to Disney's 1940 gem. Even at its best, this is embarrassment compared to Uncle Walt's predecessor. So a lot of reviewers are harsh on this movie because they're comparing it to the Disney film, and it doesn't help that the film itself is inviting the comparison. However, you know, I feel like they're kind of missing the forest for the trees here. This movie isn't bad just because it's not as good as the Disney version. Like, lots of people have made Pinocchio films. Like, you don't have to compare every single Pinocchio film to the Disney version. But it's bad for tons of other valid reasons that have nothing to do with the Disney version. You could have never heard of the Disney version in your life, maybe because you've been living under a rock. You can watch this and still be like, this isn't very good. So, as you might have guessed, this is Bugsburg, the scene where the TV series was going to take place. The series was in production when Filmation closed down, and I think there is a pilot episode, or even like a few episodes, I don't know how many, that can be viewed online if you know where to look for them. Yeah, again, I just question Filmation's decision-making because I don't know. This is the least interesting part of the film. The stuff with the bugs. But they thought having bugs with buzzy voices and goofy bug puns was enough. Was like the real draw. Like kids would just be begging to see these characters. Yeah. Is it weird that what bothers me most about all this is that the toad has, like, fingernails? Like, toads don't have fingernails. It just looks very weird. So we'll just take a break, kids, and wait for the Pinocchio story to come back. Eventually.
We've got to save him!
We can't let this film be tolerable! We have to keep him alive! Keep in mind, G. Willikers was born yesterday. And he doesn't get the character arc that Pinocchio does. He's just a day old and is already ready to slay toads with sticks.
Lucky for him, he put me down when he did.
Aren't you a bee? Can't you sting him? Yeah, you'd die, but that's just another, advantage. I guess the toad really wants to eat the bug made of wood. But to be fair, toads are kind of stupid. Like, they'll eat things that aren't food. If something's moving in front of them, they'll just strike. My animation is weirdly fluid! And weirdly off-model at the same time. I'm just punting, guys. I got nothing to say about this. This was a mistake. Instead of, like, spending time on a plot, you spent time on this. Like, there's only so many times I could say the same thing. I guess I can mention that Filmation was working on one other animated series. At the time that, they closed down, which was, let me look. Bravo, which was a spin-off of a cartoon named Brave Star, which I've never heard of. So yeah, it was this and Bravo, and Happily Ever After, which they did ultimately finish.
I let him down, and now he's gone.
Yep, you sure did.
I really miss the old chap.
was the finest piece of
I'm a little disturbed by how this film switches between bugs designs that look like anthropomorphic bugs and bug designs that look like human beings with bug features added onto them. God, I hate you and your grief for me!
I'm alive, you big sap! I ditched that log as soon as it hit the drink.
You didn't see that because we didn't want to animate it. We wanted to be surprised that you lived. Just imagining Kathy Bates, like in a Misery, standing up and shouting, "That's not how it happened! He didn't get out of the cocky doodle log!"
Every fucking bug, we're gonna be looking for him. Just tell us what he looks like.
Well, he's real.
Yes, so this is their very weak tie into the rest of the plot. They asked the bugs in Bugsburg to keep an eye out for Pinocchio, who's on the steamship with these two louts. I do like that he's holding the pole in his foot. That's like a nice detail.
You know, Igor.
You know, with Igor's broken English, is he like a caricature?
Time we retire.
Can you be offended if you're not sure what ethnicity he's mocking? I mean, he's got a fez.
Once we catch up to the carnival and turn Pinocchio over to Puppetino, we'll have enough gold to retire.
Mr. Scalloway.
50 coins is enough gold to retire? Okay.
All the coal into the engine.
It's hard to be sympathetic for them when they're planning to sell a child.
I was thinking, maybe you could swab the deck while I fish.
A noble gesture indeed. But as I said, fishing in these waters is quite hazardous. We can't risk anything happening to our leader, can we?
Before we sell his kidneys on eBay.
That's why I thought it best that Igor and I undertake the miserable and thankless...
I don't like how much focus there is on his feet. Between that and the toad trying to eat our not quite heroes earlier, I hope the furries on Fur Affinity don't find out about this movie. Oh hell, who am I kidding? They already know about it. They already know about everything. There was absolutely nothing more relevant or interesting we could have been showing, aside from that long panning shot of the river.
Where do you think we saw your friend? He's on a boat. That way.
Gee, thanks. Come on.
Oh, they could have just had, you know... Phaelus pointed out in his review that Grumblebee could have been plot relevant on his own by just being good at tracking, and G. Willikers could have, like, found Pinocchio that way, or they could have, like, not separated them in the first place, or they could have not had G. Willikers in the film at all, since there isn't a ton that he adds that other characters couldn't have added. Just, like, this movie is just wasting so much of its time on the wrong things. Even this scene, where, Scallywag and Igor nearly killed by a giant pike, which, again, I don't think pikes are an animal that live in Italy, and Pinocchio saves them, which thus gives them second thoughts about selling him to a madman who will turn him into a wooden toy. Even that feels like, isn't there a plot-relevant way that they could have befriended him? A way that would, like, tie directly into the Emperor of the Night? I get saving the Emperor of the Night to the end of the film, but his presence should at least be felt throughout the film before that. And they don't do that here. They just have like a bunch of unrelated vignettes. Even the motivation of get the music box back, which is the main motivation at this point in the film, is not a compelling one. It's just a music box. It was worth 10 coins. Okay. Even Geppetto himself has admitted that he'd rather have Pinocchio home than get the music box back. The music box has no significant value. It's purely just a job that Geppetto was hired to do. The movie would honestly be better if, like, instead of the music box, Twinkle was Pinocchio's motivation for going on this quest. Like, maybe he saw Twinkle get carried away by this carnival. Maybe he knew her back when she was human, because, you know, at this point he would have presumably have been going to school after skipping out at the beginning of the original story. And maybe, like, Twinkle would be a classmate of his. Then she goes to this carnival. He sees her get turned into a puppet, like, oh my gosh, I gotta go save her now. And there's your plot. And I know rescuing a girl is kind of a cliche motivation, but you know what? It's a lot more compelling than getting a damn music box back. It would be a lot more focused. It would be a lot more emotionally compelling. And there would be an irony in Pinocchio having to save another puppet after becoming human. Not to mention, the beginning of that quest would show already how he's matured since the last story, since he starts off wanting to rescue someone, when wanting to rescue someone was only his goal at the end of the Disney film.
Maybe a bit hasty in our decision to pursue the carnival.
Hey, come on! We'll get
My animation is weirdly fluid here. I love his expressions.
There's something I may have neglected to tell you.
There it is!
There's something kind of funny about him cheerfully going, "There it is!" while looking at the super ominous ship of death with the carts that are driving themselves.
It's going on that big
Hey, you know that goofy strong man that we saw for 2 seconds with the black mustache? Is he with this evil carnival too?
Not until I
That
get
seems
that
kind of
box.
inconsistent. Like, we didn't see any other attractions except Puppettino's and that
Don't understand.
strong man with the cannon. Like, is there a whole staff for this carnival that we never see? Well, why are none of them characters? Why is Puppettino the only one that gets any degree of focus, and even then he doesn't get nearly enough focus? Like, what's his backstory? Why is he working for the Emperor of the Night? Why does he turn kids into puppets? Is Twinkle the only one he's ever transformed from Pinocchio, or did he turn those other kids? The film doesn't answer those questions, and the film honestly doesn't even seem to know. I found that the works that I like, that are the most fascinating to me, and the ones that I want to talk about on the channel most, are the ones with wasted potential. Like, there are enough kernels of good ideas in here that they could be made into something good, but the film just sleeps on them, and that's so frustrating.
Hillikers! Did you tell Father not to worry?
Not to worry. Are you out of your mind?
Slap! If I told him there was no reason to worry, I would be lying to him. Do you have no survival instinct at all? Okay, we are past the 50-minute mark on this movie. I just checked the time code. And we are finally about to meet the Emperor of the Night after only hearing one line from him for the beginning of this movie. And it's amazing how much shit, since we last heard him speak, and this scene where Pinocchio finally enters the Empire, that we could have skipped and, like, not missed anything. Chalaluna, I don't know the lines behind those words.
Would you like a ride?
Hi, James.
No, Pinocchio.
Nah. Well, that shuts me up. See you later. He rolls away.
In with the carnival. Do you know where they went?
Why, yes. Come aboard.
The eyes thing is a little worrying.
I know, look.
I guess we could, like, grab him or something and hold him back, but nah, we're just gonna let him row away with White Dreams Earl Jones here.
Wait for me.
So this portion of the film, in addition to being the time where we finally get back on track with being plot relevant, is also a pretty blatant copy of the Pleasure Island sequence from the Disney film. Yeah. I do kind of like the atmosphere in this animation. It's like very dark and moody.
Down there? Why, that's the land where dreams come true.
The land where dreams come true?
It's a KFC. It's a little bit overhyped, I admit, but hey, your dreams can come true in a KFC.
Fun with
If your dream is to eat KFC.
all the toys you want? Being a famous star?
Being a donkey? Oh, no, wait, that's the other one.
Is in the other direction.
Drinking root beer? Oh, no, wait, that's the
Unless,
remake.
of course, you'd rather go to the land where dreams come true.
Nah, I want the jewel box. And James Earl Jones is like, well, I'm out of ideas. That was my one card.
Now, just one.
Idiot!
Thought we were.
I won't stay long, I promise.
As you wish.
This kid, he's so dumb, it reaches the point where he's like not even likable anymore. It's like, if you're just gonna fall for the same shit over and over again and be so easily distracted, when being distracted is the reason you lost the music box and disappointed your dad in the first place, like, I don't care. If you want to be on a milk carton, you're that badly, who am I to stop you?
Great! Pinocchio, for the last time, I think we should...
You wait here.
G. Willikers went through all that headache to reunite with him. He's just like, you wait here, you selfish, stupid brat!
Not so fast.
This music is a touch anachronistic, but whatever. What's with the eyes?
I can have fun too?
Oh, of course. But there's
Now hold out your hand for the stamp.
we ask in return.
What's that?
Your soul!
You'll have to sign this little agreement.
That's all? I'll do that.
No, what are you doing, you idiot? You get him to sign the contract before he goes in. You'll never make it at Google with that attitude. Sign, and then the fun thing. He already said he'd do it, so there's no reason not to get his signature now. Cube from Madoka is shaking his head. Amateur. Hi, diddly hit D, a rip-off life for me.
What is it?
Never mind what it is. Just drink it. It'll make you feel good.
That sounds incredibly suspicious.
Are you
But,
sure we're supposed to?
We can
Wait, where did those kids go? It's like a breeze blew them away. Do you see that in the background? They just went whoosh. Anyway, that's... Never mind what it is, just try it. Sounds suspicious, but that's what my grandmother says whenever she feeds me something. Be like, hey, Ma, what is this? Just try it, it's good. Okay, but what is it, though? Man.
What is it? Toys. All the toys you want.
Actually, I was pointing at your hat. Is that like a jellyfish, or...
Whose are they?
They can be yours if you want them.
So, Pinocchio being this easily distracted kind of makes it seem like he doesn't have motivation, and therefore not much character. Because his whole goal is supposed to be to get the music box back, but he's so easily distracted that it makes it seem like it's not that important to him at the first place. Why did he see a vision of Twinkle? Is he hallucinating, or is she somehow communicating to him telepathically? And look at them down that shit! Like, if it's green, that implies that it's absinthe. And it seems to be hitting him pretty hard, but like, absinthe is a hardcore drink. Like, even if you find a place that serves it, they only give you like a tiny amount. But these kids are like downing like whole liters of it, like they're at the beer garden.
What happened? Where are we?
Hurry! You're on!
Me?
Yes, your fans are waiting.
My fans?
Because the last time you were promised stardom by a creepy guy in a suit, it went so well for you. Might as well do it again!
It's gonna be curtains, all right.
I could try to stop him, but at this point, I've kind of just realized that he's not worth it.
I better not keep my fans waiting.
You don't have fans. This movie's too obscure for that. Dun 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 dun. I got no strings to hold me down. There are no strings on me.
Hello, mister. You're a star.
I haven't talked a whole lot about the songs in this movie. They're okay. This one is pretty catchy, but, you know, it's not super relevant to anything. It's just part of Pinocchio's temptations. The one Ricky Lee Jones as the Blue Fairy sang earlier was nice, but it was distracted by some of the nightmarish faces Pinocchio was making. Twinkle's song was also kind of nice, but some of the lyrics were kind of not very, they were clunky, is what I want to say. Like, basically, her song was a bittersweet song about now that she's run away from home, she, her parents aren't around to tell her what to do, but they also aren't around to give her any affection. But one of the lyrics she sings is, "Mothers and fathers get in your way, don't let you turn the night into day." Like, what? Like, that was a stretch. The song could be heartbreaking if we went more into Twinkle's backstory about her implied backstory about, how she was lured away from her home by Puppetino. Which, has a very, disturbing connotation for any parents who have nightmares about their parents being spirited away by creepy strangers, especially since nowadays it's become common knowledge that people, it's happened over and over again that people who work with kids in the entertainment industry turn out to be very inappropriate towards said kids, like the controversy that's hit Nickelodeon recently. So, the idea of a children's entertainer being hostile to kids is especially dangerous. But again, the movie doesn't go into that, even though it should. And it even implies in some of the marketing that it should. Like, there's a poster or advertisement or something for this movie that shows Puppetino, looming sinisterly over Twinkle as a puppet who has her, face in her hands like she's crying. That dynamic is scary, interesting, and, speak of the devil, I do like that Pinocchio recoils from Puppetino because any kid would be terrified of him after that last scene. However, Puppetino is about to be overshadowed pretty epically here. So I do like the idea that all these guys were all the Emperor of the Night, and the tell was that the eyes flashing red. Whoa!
Who are you?
The Emperor of the Night.
Hey, monster fuckers. You're welcome.
I was afraid.
Look at that. Look at this guy's design.
My world?
Look at how popped his collar is. He's got 4 arms. He's voiced by James Earl Jones. He's got the void like Gigas from the second Earthbound game in his cape. Where was this guy the whole movie? So it turns out all the other kids that Pinocchio has been hanging out with in this place were all puppets. And one of them seems to be a mother holding a baby. Again, were these puppets that were created to trick Pinocchio? Were these other people who were turned into puppets? Was Pinocchio just... were they using some sort of magic to make them move, or were they all transformed after they got there, like in the Disney version? The movie doesn't tell us, because honestly, the movie doesn't know. It's just showing a bunch of creepy imagery, albeit very memorably creepy imagery, without coming up with any kind of story logic to justify it or give it meaning.
Who has been a real boy. That's why you're so important to the good fairy and to me. Yes, indeed, the good fairy.
So him saying he's the only puppet in the world who used to be real makes him important, would seem to imply that all those puppets around him were never real. But then Twinkle, it's implied, was real. So are puppets that used to be real girls not as important as ones that used to be real boys? Sexist. It's possible that the movie got it backwards, and what he meant to say was, you're the only real boy who used to be a puppet. But even that might be contradicted later, and I'll show you where. Hey, instead of throwing Willikers through this portal that just leads out of the ship, it seems like this whole movie is just finding ways to keep Willikers away from Pinocchio. Kind of makes it seem like Willikers is an extraneous character in the first place. But instead of just teleporting him out of the ship, maybe teleport him into, the moon, or the center of the earth, or Florida, some kind of horrible place like that. But whatever.
The Emperor gets his power from those who fall prey
to their own temptation.
And how do you know that?
Just because I had a little fun?
I'm afraid we all let our judgment be swayed by our desires. That's what the Emperor counts on.
What Emperor want?
Every time someone gives up their freedom, the good fairy grows weaker. And they
Then we're cut outside this carriage for that dialogue, so we didn't have to animate that part.
To lose it would be a terrible blow to the good fairy. It might even destroy her.
How the hell do you know any of that? It is never shown that you've interacted with the Emperor of the Night, and you have even less connection to the Blue Fairy.
The Emperor is waiting. Surprise for you, Pinocchio.
Is it weird that I love Puppetino? His big obscene lips. His inexplicable Cockney accent, even though the actor was born in Manhattan. The guy voicing Puppetino, by the way, is William Wyndham, who's an actor I don't know a ton about, but he is an Emmy winner. Not for this, but for something else. For My World and Welcome to It. Yeah, he won the Emmy for that. He was also in Murder, She Wrote alongside Angela Lansbury. So that's neat. He died in 2012 at the age of 88. So he was never a huge star, but he was, like, he had a lot of roles. And he won an Emmy. Oh, it says here he has 6 kids. Why is this so much more interesting than the bugs?
Never be able to fly through it.
We don't have to fly.
Cut to him using Grumblebee as a boat. Just rowing with Grumblebee's face in the water. Boy, drowning you is the best mode of transportation I can imagine.
Well, Pinocchio, are you ready to sign away your freedom?
Now that you've sat in the carriage for a few minutes and had exposition given to you by a raccoon who would have no way to know it.
You want your box, do you?
I don't like that he loomed over the child saying, "You want your box, do you?"
Your Highness, perhaps my colleague and I could sign in place of the boy.
You're the one who already explained that he wants Pinocchio specifically. Why did you think that would work?
Never sign.
Nice gesture, but completely empty.
You're a brave boy, Pinocchio. So I've decided to return your box. And
Stop saying your box!
what belongs to him.
My jewel box.
Wait, so Puppetino really did have the jewel box? Scallywag wasn't lying about that? Again, gives all the more reason that we should have seen Scallywag and Puppetino interact instead of Bug and Toad shit.
Very well.
No, I'm just repeating myself at this point. Much like the movie. You don't have to bring her to life. She's fine like this.
One more thing.
Pinocchio, you're a
There's
scumbag!
something in the box for you. It came our way just before you did.
Oh boy, I hope it's candy.
Pinocchio!
Oh, it's just my stupid dad.
Father, what have they done to you? Please, make him big again. I'll do anything.
No!
If you make my
If you had his dad, you probably should have started with that instead of the stupid Pleasure Island knockoff. But no, we have to copy what Disney did because this is a sequel that's doing all the same things the original did, which is the worst type of sequel. Ah, God! There's way too much ugly to be on screen at once.
And this time, not even the good fairy will be able to save you.
So that was a fucking lie.
Few moments, the transformation be complete. You will have no will at all. Take the
So wait, the Emperor of the Night's method for turning him to a puppet is actually slower than Puppetino's method, because Puppetino was able to turn him to a puppet all at once. But with the contract method, it takes time? Why is Puppetino more powerful than the guy that's supposed to be more powerful than him?
Shall I teach him a lesson?
Hey, Puppetino, we talked about this. Hands off the child. Don't have to call your parole officer again.
My insolent little puppet.
Ah! You're big.
You're so strong and powerful. Why did I have to sign?
Excellent
Why
point.
didn't you just make me into a puppet anyway?
Again, an excellent point.
Choose your fate.
Which is why Puppetino was able to turn you into a puppet against your will early in the movie. This is a well thought out story we're telling. So, this is another thing Phalis pointed out in his review. That even though, God, that animation's good. That even though they make a big deal of Pinocchio signing his freedom away, the instant he did, he's immediately able to defeat the Emperor of the Night.
Have no power over us anymore.
At least in Pokemon the first movie, they foreshadowed near the beginning of the movie that Pokemon's tears can bring people back to life. This is coming right the hell out of nowhere.
Leave this terrible place and go home.
And if the Blue Fairy's magic through another person is enough to defeat the Emperor of the Night, why didn't the Blue Fairy just show up and defeat him herself? They're just like, oh, we're having this heroic second win because that's what's supposed to happen in a movie after the moment of despair where he loses everything. But they can't come up with a good reason for it to happen, which makes it seem like the movie is just having things happen because it wants it to, which makes it seem like it's rigged in Pinocchio's favor, which it is. Oh wait, this is what I was talking about earlier with the... So, when the Emperor of the Night smites Puppetino, he turns into a puppet. I have so many questions. If it took time to turn Pinocchio into a puppet, why was he able to turn Puppetino into a puppet instantly? Is it because Puppetino already signed his freedom away to Pinocchio and therefore he could just do it instantly? Or is it because Puppetino, as has been theorized on TV tropes, was originally a puppet? But if he was originally a puppet, that makes Pinocchio even less special because there's another puppet that's been brought back to life. I do really like the idea that an evil counterpart to the Blue Fairy brought her own puppet to life, but it's evil instead of good. But, like, that's me writing the movie for it. Like, the movie didn't say that. That's something I came up with from my brain. Because the movie didn't clarify what Puppetino's backstory is.
I know, why? No, he's not good. Look where it gets me and Boss.
None of this was my fault. I was taking out the trash when these...
The idea of lying to make the nose grow bigger is one that I don't think makes a whole lot of sense for this story, because the whole point is that Pinocchio was wrong to lie and he should have acted more maturely, which was the same message as the original. By contrast, when they did a scene like this in Shrek 2, where lying is able to rescue Shrek and his friends, it made more sense there, because Shrek is supposed to be anti-Disney and in a way anti-fairy tale. So it's like supposed to, like, you know, show that the clean morals and clean stories that you learn from, like, classic fairy tales, and especially from Disney version of those fairy tales, well, I have no idea why that happened. And they see the pike from... Like, what? Anyway, it shows that breaking the conventions of those fairy tales will actually, like, you know... That's basically what those movies are about. Right down to having an ogre as the main hero and romantic lead. So, having Pinocchio lie to save the day fits into that thematically, but it doesn't fit here.
Try telling the truth.
Especially since he has to tell the truth to get back out again. Like, this movie's a mess. It doesn't know what it's about.
And I've learned my lesson. I'll do what I'm supposed to do, and I'll never, ever, ever get tempted by anything again. At least I'll sure try not to.
Geppetto's seriously regretting not using that stupid pine log as firewood instead of carving it into a puppet. I could have had a really nice fire. Warm. Wouldn't have wasted my money. Wouldn't have given away my possessions. Ruined my commissions. I wouldn't have gotten eaten by a whale. Or kidnapped by James Earl Jones. None of that would have happened to me.
I can't. Allow me.
Plot relevant thing number 2 that Grumblebee got to do. To sting the Scallywag.
turn, Father. Hang on.
Wait, why did you hold your nose? You're made of wood! You can clearly see there's no nostrils there. Nicely animated explosion. With no transition, here's James Earl Jones again.
But you will not escape. Your father will pay for what you've done.
Even though you already escaped with the magic and there's no indication that you can't just do the same thing you did to get away the first time again.
You're not going anywhere.
Why am I so consistently thwarted by a bug? You know, like he did at the end of the first one.
Pinocchio, no! He's fire! You're wood!
Has it been established that he's fire? He mostly just seems to look like a bunch of Gigas nonsense. Well, that was easily defeated. Turns out if you just kind of run at Satan with a blue flashlight, you can smite him instantly. Good to know. So, how long was the Emperor of the Night on screen before he was defeated? Looks like it was less than 30 minutes. Good job, movie. Good job. Okay, one annoying character still alive.
Oh, Pinocchio, Pinocchio.
One useless character still alive.
I'll miss you so much.
Oh, this is just like the ending of the Disney film where they think Pinocchio's dead, but then it turns out he's not. Yeah, I know he hasn't come back to life yet, but you know it's coming anyway. Because that's what the Disney film did!
Pinocchio, David!
Ew, there's a bee in my ear.
And that young whippersnapper over there has stolen his clothes.
Pinocchio, is that you?
Father?
Damn it!
Oh,
And the furries that tricked me.
I was so afraid we'd lost you.
But hey, they go through a lot more character development than stupid Pinocchio does. Somehow!
Again. The Emperor's magic wore off!
Well done.
Yeah, sure, why not?
You saved
Ew.
next of all and one. Pinocchio, you're not a puppet.
I'd say that the blue fairy saved us. Considering it was her magic that allowed us to beat him. You're the reason we were in danger in the first place.
Poor Twinkle. If only we could have saved her, too.
I really care for the girl who's never said a word to me.
Twinkle.
Speaking of, how was Twinkle singing her song earlier? Was Puppetino, event, like, how would have, if he could, like, was the man of a million voices, that would have been cool to show up and, whatever, it doesn't matter. We're almost through this mess.
Everything.
No, it was you. You were willing to sacrifice yourself to save your father.
With the glowing blue magic that you already knew warded off the Emperor of the... You know, they should have had a spin-off with Scallywag and Igor. That would have, like, they still would have gone bankrupt, but that would have made more sense. And yeah, it is a little weird they're making a spin-off with rip-off Disney characters, but that's what Bugsburg is anyway.
Here, Father.
I wash my hands of this little idiot.
Father could ever ask for, and I love you very much.
Well, Willikers, looks like you won't be needing the royal air bugs any longer.
I'm sure gonna miss you.
Pinocchio died the next year when he choked to death on a marble.
I hereby dub you Private Last Class in the Royal Ground Bands.
And they never saw each other again, and there was no spin-off series.
Hey, Grumblebee.
That's
I know.
Lieutenant Grumblebee.
You know there isn't an RAB, right? Like,
What say we all
you just have 8th grade syndrome?
Hooray for home!
Couldn't have said it
Then again, I do get why G. Willikers would want to move to Bugsburg. That way he never has to see stupid Pinocchio again. Seems like Pinocchio doesn't want him around anyway. Hi, diddly-dee! An unsatisfying conclusion for me.
I say, wait for me. I've changed my mind.
No! No! Go away! Get the raid! Get him out of here! Okay, that was Pinocchio, Emperor of the Night. It was a mess. Filmation... They're an fascinating company with a fascinating history. Phaelus on his own channel, not in the review for this movie, but his review for their last movie, Happily Ever After, has talked about how one of the founders of Filmation apparently wrote a book about the company, including how it closed and the lawsuit. While I haven't read that book, I would be fascinated to read it. But it seems to me like Filmation was undone, not just by petty corporate jealousy or Disney quashing its any potential competition, though it was that, but also just by poor storytelling choices. If they wanted to do Pinocchio, they had enough ideas to make a unique version, and because Pinocchio is public domain, they don't have to keep the original story. They could have had a really fascinating dark story with Pinocchio and the Emperor of the Night, and like, you know, him facing all these eldritch horrors to get Twinkle back or whatever. But instead, it's this meandering, unfocused mess that isn't even clear on what its message is. They make a lot of token noises about freedom and how your choices determine who you are, but they aren't really able to, like, turn that into anything meaningful. You could have replaced the word freedom with any other, like, heartwarming concept. Well, love, or dreams, or hope, or brushing your teeth, and it would have changed nothing else about the script and would have equated to the exact same outcome. So, yeah, this movie's a wreck. I'm looking at Wikipedia again. It looks like it made $3.2 million against a $10 million budget. And I don't know if that $10 million budget includes the lawsuit or not, but, you know, even without it, there isn't a whole lot to recommend in this movie. There are some scenes that work and some characters that work, but Pinocchio himself is just a chore to watch through his constant stupid decisions. And yeah, this movie, it's more of just a waste. It could have been so much more than what it is, and Filmation could have been so much more than what it ended up being. The nice animation and genuinely atmospheric and well-executed scenes show that they could have been something great if they were just led in the right direction. But that's all for now. This has been DragonKeeper. I've enjoyed watching this film with you guys. See you with more videos in the future. Take care!